If your life looks successful on paper but feels different on the inside, you're in the right place. This is Midlife Alabahare, a podcast for high-achieving midlife professionals exploring identity, fulfillment, self-respect, and how to live more truthfully inside the life they've built. Through research-informed insight, lived experiences, self-coaching, meditation, and timeless wisdom, we'll look at what it means to return to yourself without starting over. Follow the show to stay connected to the conversation. Welcome back to Midlife Alabahare. Before we go further, just take one breath with me. Not to fix anything, not to calm down perfectly, not to turn this into yet another self-improvement exercise. Just one breath to notice whether there is any part of you that has been trying to turn an ache into a plan. That is where we are beginning today. Some of what you call ambition may actually be longing in disguise. And if that sentence lands even a little, stay with me. Because this is one of the most subtle ways high-achieving people lose contact with themselves. Not by failing or falling apart or losing motivation, but by translating every inner ache into another goal. Something in you feels restless, and before you have even had a moment to listen, the mind is already moving. What should I do? What should I fix? What should I improve? Who should I become next? The ache becomes an assignment, and because you are capable, you may actually complete that assignment. You may make progress, achieve the next thing, feel relief for a while. But relief, my friends, is not the same as return. That is a distinction I want to explore today. Because ambition is not the enemy. Ambition can be clean. It can get creative. It can be beautiful. It can be one of the ways we participate fully in our own becoming. But not every inner ache is ambition. Some ache is longing. And longing asks for a different kind of attention. Ambition reaches forward. Longing points inward. Ambition says, go and build. Longing says, come closer. Ambition asks, what's next? Longing asks, what have you been away from? And this is where I want to bring in Rumi. For anyone who may not be familiar with him, Rumi was a 13th century Persian poet, mystic, and spiritual teacher whose work has traveled across cultures and centuries because he speaks to something deeply human: longing, love, separation, surrender, and the return to what is most real. And I want to say this clearly. I'm not bringing Rumi into this episode to make it sound poetic. I'm not asking you to become mystical if this is not your language. I'm simply bringing him in because Rumi gives us a different way to understand longing. A way that is especially useful for people who have spent years becoming highly capable. High achievement often trains us to move outward, towards the next goal, the next result, the next level, the next visible proof that we are growing and capable and valuable and on track. Rumi keeps us turning inward, not inward as escape, inward as remembrance. He invites us to consider that some of what we are trying to find through striving may actually be something we are being asked to remember, to recover, or to return to. This is a very different orientation from what we've learned as high achievers. If the ache is ambition, the answer may be movement. But if the ache is longing, the first answer may be listening. And listening can be hard when you're used to being effective. It doesn't always feel productive. It doesn't give you that immediate satisfaction of checking something off. It doesn't always create a visible result. But sometimes the deepest shift begins when you stop asking, "What should I go achieve now?" and start asking, "What have I become separated from?" That is the Rumi doorway. Longing is not just emptiness. It may be memory. It may be the part of you that still remembers a truer way to live. There is a moment that happens so quickly, most of us miss it. Something inside you aches. Maybe you feel restless. Maybe there is a sense of something is missing, but you can't quite name it. Maybe it appears when things get quiet. Maybe it comes after you've completed something and expected to feel more satisfied than you actually do. Maybe it shows up as a pull towards beauty, silence, depth, nature, prayer, music, poetry, or a conversation where you don't have to perform. And almost immediately, the mind tries to help. It says, "Okay, now, let's solve this." That sounds reasonable. It may even sound responsible. But sometimes the mind reaches for the only language it trusts: achievement. Your longing becomes a goal. Tenderness becomes a strategy. Your inner hunger for something more becomes a new standard. The private ache becomes something to optimize. And because you may be very good at this, the translation can look quite productive. You may not even recognize it as avoidance. You may call it clarity, discipline, the next right step. And sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's not. Sometimes it is a very sophisticated way of not sitting with the deeper question: what am I actually longing for? This question can feel very inconvenient. It doesn't always give a clean answer. It doesn't immediately produce a plan. It may ask you to listen before you act. And for a high achiever, that can feel almost inefficient. My friends, longing can't always be rushed into usefulness. Sometimes longing needs to be heard before it can be understood. This is one of the reasons Rumi's work can help us here. He doesn't treat longing like a malfunction. He doesn't treat ache as something to conquer quickly so we can get back to producing. In Rumi's world, longing often has intelligence. It points towards separation from something essential, from love, from truth, from the deeper self, from the inner home we forget when we are too busy proving that we are capable. And whether you relate to Rumi spiritually, poetically, psychologically, or simply as a human voice that understands the ache of separation, his work offers an interruption. A beautiful interruption. It interrupts the assumption that the answer is always more. More effort, more becoming, more proof, more visible progress. Instead, Rumi asks us to wonder, what if the ache is not trying to push me forward? What if it is calling me inward? What if the longing is not a distraction from my life, but a doorway back into it? This is Rumi's invitation. Not to stop building or growing or caring about excellence, but to stop making achievement responsible for every unmet longing. Here's the loop I want you to notice, my friends. An ache appears. You interpret it as a need to achieve, improve, fix, or become. You move towards something. That movement gives you relief. Relief feels good, just for a moment. You feel back in control. You feel purposeful again. You feel like, okay, I'm doing something about this. I'm on the right path. Then eventually the ache returns. And when it does, the mind says, maybe the goal was not big enough for me. So you reach again. That is the loop. Ache, pursuit, relief, ache returns, more pursuit. And the most important part of that loop is not the pursuit. It is misreading the ache. The ache was never fully understood. It was simply converted. And if you keep converting longing into ambition, you may continue building things that give you relief without bringing you back to yourself. That is why relief matters as a distinction. Relief says, I can exhale for a moment. Return says, there I am. Relief quiets the pressure. Return restores contact with self. Relief can happen after a win. Return can happen in a breath, in a truth, in a walk, a prayer, a moment of beauty, a conversation where you don't need to edit yourself, or a quiet decision to stop abandoning what you know and what is important to you. Relief is not bad, my friend. We all need relief. But if relief is the only thing you keep receiving from achievement, and the deeper ache keeps returning, then it may be time for you to ask whether achievement is being asked to do a job it cannot do. A goal can give you direction. A milestone can give you a structure. Progress can give you confidence. But achievement can't always answer your longing. It can't always restore meaning. It can't always bring you back into contact with your own life. And that is not because achievement is empty. It is because it has limits. Even good things in life have limits. Beautiful ambition has limits. Even the life you build with discipline and care can't substitute for a living relationship with your own inner truth. One reason this is so confusing is that competence feels really good. Being capable feels amazing. Knowing you can handle things, solve things, carry things, build things, you name it, that can create real confidence. And I'm not dismissing that. Competence is a beautiful thing, but competence is not the same as fulfillment. You can be competent and disconnected from desire, competent and hungry for meaning, competent and unsure where your own truth went, competent and deeply uncomfortable with a stillness, competent and unable to let beauty matter unless it produces something. This is where many successful people become underfed, not because they lack ability, because ability has overdeveloped while other parts of the self have been waiting for attention, for space, for honesty, for a different rhythm, waiting for a life that is not only functional but inhabited. Because we can build a life and still not fully inhabit in it. We can achieve inside a life and still not feel deeply present in it. We can keep moving through the rooms of our own existence without feeling at home there. And longing may be the part of us that notices. It may be the part that says, come back, not throw away everything or start over or become someone else. Simply come back. Come back to the body you've been overriding. Come back to the truth you keep postponing. Come back to the beauty you treat as optional. Come back to the silence you keep filling. Come back to the desire you keep making reasonable. Come back to the part of you that existed before every feeling had to become productive. This is why Rumi matters here. Because so much of his work points towards return. Return to love, return to truth, return to the beloved, if that is your spiritual language. Return to deeper home within yourself, if that is the language that feels more accessible to you. Either way, the movement is not toward more performance. It is toward remembrance. And that can be deeply grounding for a high achiever because it says, you're not only what you produce, you're not only what you complete or improve. There is an inner life here too, my friend. And that inner life is not a luxury. It is not something you get after everything else is handled. It is the place from which your outer life begins to feel like it belongs to you again. I want to be careful here. I'm not saying every ache is profound. I'm not saying every restless feeling deserves a major decision. Not saying longing should be used as an excuse to act impulsively. That is not the point. The point is learning to pause before you translate, before you turn the ache into a plan, before you make the ache a goal, or judge it, or shame yourself for feeling it. Before you ask, how do I make this useful? Rumi's wisdom invites a different posture. Instead of immediately asking, what do I do with this ache? We might ask, what is this ache trying to show me? This question doesn't collapse your ambition. It purifies it. Because when you actually listen to longing, some ambitions become clearer. Some become quieter. Some lose their urgency. Some reveal themselves as old proof-seeking. And some become more beautiful because they're no longer carrying the burden of your entire worth. This is why I don't believe the answer is to abandon ambition. The deeper work is to separate clean ambition from disguised longing under ambition. Clean ambition has a different feel. It is connected to values. It has energy but not desperation. It can stretch you without making you abandon yourself. It feels like preparation in your own life. Disguised longing feels more urgent. It often has a promise underneath it. Once I get there, I will feel settled. Once I achieve this, I will feel worthy. Once I become that version of myself, I will finally feel at home. Home does not come from the next version of yourself. Home begins when you stop leaving yourself in the current version. This is a completely different kind of practice, my friends. And frankly, it is much harder to sell because it is not flashy. It doesn't look impressive or sound ambitious. It is often the deeper work. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who feels a quiet ache whenever life gets still. They don't like that feeling. Stillness makes the ache louder. So they begin looking for the next project, that next improvement, that next plan. Not because the project is wrong, but because movement gives them relief. I see this so many times in my day-to-day interactions where high achievers are having a hard time to just be still. Now imagine the pause and ask, what is this ache asking me to return to? The answer may not be dramatic. It may be, I miss creativity, or I need more honest conversations, or I have not let myself rest without earning it, or I've been making my life impressive but not tender, or I'm lonely for myself. This last one may land actually. Lonely for myself. Not lonely because no one is around or because life is empty, but lonely because I've been away from my own inner life. I've been away from myself. That is a very different ache from ambition. And if you treat that ache with another achievement, you may get a temporary lift, but you will not get to return because the return was never out there. It was in the relationship you're willing to rebuild with yourself. This is where the sage alignment system comes in. See, acknowledge, ground, and execute. Today's episode is really about acknowledging. Seeing is noticing the ache. Acknowledging is no longer arguing with it. Seeing says something feels off. Acknowledging says, I will stop dismissing this just because my life looks fine. Seeing says, I keep chasing relief. Acknowledging says, maybe relief is not what I'm actually hungry for. Seeing says, I'm tired. Acknowledging says, maybe I'm not only tired, maybe I'm underfed. And that is a powerful shift, my friends. Many high achievers do see the truth. They're very smart. They see more than they admit. They feel the misalignment. They feel the distance. They feel the quiet cost of constantly performing strength, competence, and readiness. Then they negotiate with what they see. This is what they say. It is not that bad. Other people have it harder. I should be grateful. I just need a break. I just need to get through this season and all will be fine. I just need to be more disciplined. I just need a better routine. And sometimes those things are true. But sometimes there are softer ways of avoiding a harder truth. And here's the harder truth. A life can be impressive and still not be intimate. A life can be full and still not nourishing. A life can be successful and still not feel like home. This doesn't mean that the life is wrong. It simply means the relationship to the life may need to change. More honesty, more presence, more self-respect, more listening before action, more willingness to stop outsourcing your inner belonging to the next external result. Let's bring this into self-coaching. I want to give you a few questions to sit with. Not to turn this into homework in a heavy way, just to help you listen more honestly. When an ache appears in me, what do I usually try to do with it? Do I fix it, analyze it, overturn it, work over it, turn it into a goal, distract myself from it, minimize it because I think I should be grateful? No judgment, just notice the reflex. What kind of achievement gives me relief but not return? Some achievement is deeply aligned. Some achievement is meaningful. Some achievement is alive. But some achievement only quiets pressure. It gives you the exhale, but not the deeper contact. Where is that happening? What am I calling ambition that might actually be longing? Take your time with this one. The first answer may be too polished. The honest answer may need a little silence. Give that to yourself. What part of me keeps asking for attention before I turn it into improvement? Your creative self, your spiritual self, your body, your desire, your need to be known beyond what you produce? What is it? Where am I moving forward but not returning inward? This question may feel quiet, but it is not a small. Sometimes one honest answer to this question can change the way you relate to your entire week. Here is the pattern identification prompt for this episode. I want you to complete this sentence. When I feel the ache, I usually try to solve it by, but what I actually be longing for is, for example, when I feel the ache, I usually try to solve it by setting a new goal, but what I may actually be longing for is a stillness. Or, when I feel the ache, I usually try to solve it by becoming more impressive, but what I may actually be longing for is to feel more real. Keep your answer simple. The truth often becomes more useful when it becomes less elaborate. And here is the uncomfortable but useful truth. Not every ache is a problem for you to solve. Some aches are invitations you have been too busy to receive. This doesn't mean that you stop moving or become passive or sit in endless reflection and meditation and stillness. It means you stop confusing motion with honesty. You stop assuming that the next goal is the answer to every inner signal you receive. You give the ache enough respect to ask what it's actually pointing towards. This is a mature form of self-trust, my friends. Here's your practice for the week. The next time you feel that ache that you would normally turn into a plan, pause before translating it. Place a hand on your chest or your lower ribs. Take 3 slow breaths. Then ask, what is this ache asking me to return to? You may not get a complete answer, and that's okay. The point is not instant clarity. The point is building a relationship. You're practicing a different response to your own inner life. If an answer comes, write it down in one sentence only, like I'm being asked to return to silence, or to my body, or to an honest desire. I'm being asked to return to a part of me that existed before everything became a performance. And allow that sentence that comes up to be your doorway. And the standard of behavior for this week is, do not turn every ache into an assignment. Let some things be listened to before they are acted on. This doesn't mean you don't do anything. This is simply discernment and self-respect. And this is how the return begins. Rumi reminds us that longing is not always something to be embarrassed by. Sometimes longing is the part of us that it still remembers what is true. And that may be the deepest gift of bringing Rumi into a conversation about achievement. He gives us permission to stop treating every inner ache as evidence that we are behind. Maybe the ache is not proof that you need to become more. Maybe it is proof that some part of you still knows the way back to itself. Back from the habit of measuring life by movement. Back from the belief that everything meaningful must be productive. Back from the version of yourself that learned to strive well. It forgot how to listen. If there is one thing I want you to take from this episode is this. You don't have to abandon ambition, but you may need to stop asking ambition to answer every longing. Some longing is not a demand for more. Some longing is a call home. And the next achievement may not be the doorway. The return may be. Thank you for being here with me today. If this episode met you in a place you have not had words for, let it stay simple. Don't rush to fix it. Just notice what in you is asking to be welcomed back. And until next time, keep listening to the difference between the life that looks right and the life that feels true. Peace out. This podcast reflects my own views and is provided for general information, education, and entertainment purposes only. It is not professional advice of any kind. Please seek qualified professional support for your specific situation.